The three most important sentences I ever wrote in my life were to a woman on the dating app eHarmony. It took me 7 hours to craft these three sentences. But here, I had just one chance, one golden opportunity, and her name is Amy, and she is dazzling. I fall in love instantly, especially with what she wrote on her profile. Now, this message had to be perfect. Not too short, not too funny, not too short, not too long. Funny, but not trying too hard. Mention some stuff in her profile, but don't appear to be scary. After 7 hours and 42 different versions, I press send. She responds, we go back and forth, I ask her out, and I get the first date. I travel 3 hours and 25 minutes to the date, and in the car, every second, every moment, I am rehearsing and practicing these 16 pre-planned, interesting stories about myself that I plan to tell her and charm her off her feet. I am more prepared than Michael Phelps before an Olympic swimming event. Amy arrives. Beautiful. Stunning, even better in person. She's got amazing style. I'm starting to feel this incredible energy from her. And you know those 16 well-rehearsed, planned out stories down to the T that I was planning to knock her off her feet with? Well, I forgot all of them. They go out the window. It's okay. We sit down. We're off to the races. First date going well. There's flow. There's chemistry. And then 20 minutes in, my mathematical brain takes over like it does in most situations. You see, I have this dating algorithm back on my computer at home. And the bar for the second date is a previous high score of 1210 out of 2400. Not too bad. Now I start calculating Amy's score in my head. Amy's got a 2040. A 2040 out of 2400. And by the way, the 360 points she's short of perfection are things I don't even know about her yet. The date goes so swimmingly well, we don't order for another 2 hours. The date lasts, also a record, 4 hours and 20 minutes. The next morning, at about 11 a.m., I text Amy to ask her out on a second date. She says, yes, I get the second date with the woman that completely obliterated the previous high score on my dating algorithm. And more importantly, filled my heart up more than any other first date ever could. The catalyst to this moment in my life was inspired by the realization that I was feeling stuck. I was 2 years removed from a tough divorce. And when I say tough divorce, I mean it wasn't my idea. I had 2 kids at the time, and although I was an absolute present father, and they were my main priority, I was still struggling heavily from the divorce, the PTSD from it. Even tougher, a lot tougher, was seeing how my kids were still struggling from the divorce and the PTSD. I knew right then and there, I never, ever wanted to father another child again. The risk of bringing in another kid into this world and subjecting with a potential trauma like that, no way. Right then and there, though, I knew I had to shake things up. Recently, there was a TED Talk speaker at my mastermind group by the name of Jia Jung. He spoke about rejection therapy. It's an inspirational story about Jia doing 100 straight days of seeking out rejection, and it was completely life-altering for him. So I decided to challenge myself to do 100 straight days of getting outside of my comfort zone. I did everything to stretch my comfort zone. Every part of my life. Fitness, health, spirituality, business, and yes, dating. You see, I was in this dating comfort zone for a long time of dating women that were only 2 years younger, 2 years older, and within a 10-mile radius of my house. So I stretched it out a little bit. I decided to date women that were not 2 years younger, but 10 years younger. Not the 10-mile radius from my house, but the 100-mile radius from my house. The next day, Amy appears. Now, these 100 days of going outside my comfort zone came from a place in a time where I was so far away from where I wanted to be in every part of my life. I was in a rut. I was spiraling. But I knew these 100 days of getting uncomfortable were exactly what I needed. So, the first day of the challenge, I jump into a very cold body of water for 5 minutes. Thank you, Dave Asprey. By the way, it's really good for inflammation and fat loss. But the point is that several days later, I make that call to the CEO who's got that billion-dollar company. It's not as scary. I make more calls like this, and my business goes through the roof. Puts me on a path where I'm going to completely change my industry. I was pre-diabetic at the time, a bit scary. So instead of slowly decreasing my sugar intake, forget that. I go all protein, all plant-based, ditch all the carbs. And in 2.5 months, I get back down to normal glucose levels and never look back. I also was not in the best running shape at the time. So what did I do? I go out and find the best marathon coach, who, by the way, is the toughest and most grueling one out there. But in 16 weeks, I not only finish a marathon, but I run it so fast that I qualify for my lifelong dream of the Boston Marathon. Something important to note here is that I don't experience being uncomfortable like most people. You see, when I was 24, I attended this very informal mastermind group. There was about 8 people in the room. We go into the room, the door shuts, we sit down, and the leader tells us that each of us has to stand up, one at a time, and talk about who we are and what we do. And 30 seconds, 60 seconds max, I'm fourth in line, and this is when I have my first full-blown panic attack. Oh man, all my fears, all my phobias come crashing at me in uncharted territories at the same time, full force. My agoraphobia, my claustrophobia, and my fear of public speaking bring me to my knees. I feel like I'm gonna pass out, vomit, or drop dead. And by the way, I have a phobia of looking bad in front of people, and I have an even bigger phobia of throwing up. So at this point, dropping dead is the only option here. I also quiver at any thought of rejection, any type of failure, letting my family down. Hey, we're checking all the phobia boxes, all my phobia boxes, as bold and as permanent as possible here. I felt alone in my anxiety. I felt alone in my fears. And if it wasn't until I reached out to a family member and shared with her my mental health struggles that something profound happened. Now, one of my comfort zone tasks was to reach out to a family member, share the mental health struggles. And the reason why this is so uncomfortable is that it is taboo in my family and in my culture to speak of any mental health struggles. You just don't even go there. So I picked up the phone and I called Gail. Gail is one of the oldest of my generation. She's also the matriarch of our family and one of the strongest women I know. I love Gail. And I opened up to her and I told her that when our cousin Carson died from suicide, I understood why. Because I have had suicidal thoughts before. I also share with her about the fierce anxiety that either makes me feel like my heart is going to explode or I'm going to pass out or die. And then Gail shares with me her experience. Gail tells me that she suffers from anxiety. She has panic attacks as well. Wow. Things completely changed at that moment. I am no longer strange. This is not all in my head. If she has it and I have it, I have someone to talk to. Gail gave me that knowledge, the permission to share this with every other person. So I ran to my doctor's office and I told her about the divorce. I told her about the PTSD. I told her about feeling stuck. She put me on a low dose of antidepressants and she told me, it happens a lot. It happens to a lot of people. So Gail, after 46 years, she taught me that it is okay to share with others exactly who I am. Now, the 100 days of going outside my comfort zone are long in the past, but I still do whatever I can to get outside my comfort zone because that's exactly who I am today. And that man who was bumbling around on eHarmony and on his first date 6 years ago, whose PTSD could have never, ever put him in a situation to get married again or father another child. Well, let me tell you something. That man is now married to that woman who he had that 4-hour and 20-minute date with. Yes, I am married to Amy, and Amy is amazing. She completely allows me to be my true self, and that makes me indestructible. And together, we've built this life where I'm not afraid to father a child again, which made it such a joy to bring our daughter into this world. So in 2019, Amy and I celebrated the arrival of our daughter, Stella. And Stella constantly and continuously pushes me way outside of my comfort zone. Thank you.